Welcome to Baseball Biz. I'm Mark Carpenter, your host, and with me today, I have Mr. Brent Cardy of The Cardy Show. And if you haven't heard him, well, why haven't you? His show is always fantastic. I like listening to it. I learn a lot about the history of Canadian baseball, a lot of the different players. And more importantly, from my perspective, I like to hear what he has to say about the Blue Jays up there, in Toronto, everything that this team has been doing. Brent and I talked earlier this year. We had some thoughts about maybe how this season was going. And we both had positive vibes about the Blue Jays, but we'll get into that in just a minute. Hey, Brent, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Corey, great to be back, bud. Thank you so much. I'm doing great. Cardy Show is doing great. The weather's beautiful. How about you?
I am doing fantastic, brother. I've loved just watching you guys this week. What can I say? To see Aaron Boone as distressed as I've seen him on those press conferences, I kind of feel for him a little bit, but not a whole lot. I don't want anybody really to go through that much mental distress, but gosh, Yankee fans got to be chewing their thumbs off by now and trying to figure out what the heck they expect for the rest of this year.
The good thing is we are in first place, and we got the pen. Reggie tells me all the time, we got the pen. We get to write the script the rest of the way. No one else can get in our way if we go play our game. And that's what we got to do. But we got to stop talking about it. We got to go do it.
Booney saying, basically, we've got the pen now to write our story. I said, yeah, but all I was thinking, Brent, when I heard that is, are you running out of ink?
Well, here's the thing with the Yankees. So they had a phenomenal start to the year. And a couple of things were kind of in their favor. First is the schedule. They played a ton of weaker teams. Their schedule was super duper weak. Not only that, but Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton were both healthy. We're talking about two guys that make regular IL stints probably every 2 to 3 months. And as we talk right now, Stanton is on the IL. Judge has been healthy. Judge has been phenomenal this year, playing above his head. Great ball player, and we now know what he can do with a full healthy season as we sit here August 22nd. I mean, he's definitely going to encroach 50 home runs, maybe even 55. It's been a great story to watch him, but at some point we knew the Yankees were going to regress a bit. The schedule was going to get harder. Guys were going to get hurt. Aroldis Chapman has not been the same. He has been a disaster and a half, and that's putting it politely. Clay Holmes came over from the Pirates. He has been very, very good, but again, another guy that's coming probably off the IL this week. They're thinking that he'll be available after the Mets series from what I'm hearing. So we knew that this is going to happen, but here's the thing. They still have a 7-game lead in the East. They just have to, win some games. They're going to take the East. They'll be fine. Not that, Jays fans and Rays fans want them to. But I mean, Booney just needs to relax a little bit. Garrett Cole needs to relax a little bit. Everything's fine if you're a Yankees fan.
Yeah, it's kind of watch that way too. I was talking with a fellow the other day, John Vampatella, and he's a big Red Sox fan, and he's got an aunt by the name of Irene. And he was telling me earlier in the season, he said, Aunt Irene, he says, if we lose one game during the beginning, he said, she just completely, well, I'm leaving. I'm sorry. I'm not going to watch them anymore. And that was earlier in the year, and they were just doing gangbusters. So when I talked to him a couple of days ago, I say, hey, John, how's Aunt Irene doing? Well, yeah, turmoil. But yeah, I mean, I feel like they probably got it. I mean, both of us, we have teams that are 8 games out. There's 40 games left. It's not an impossibility, but it's not unlikely. But hey, man, and as you were saying, the Yankees have stayed fresh. They have not had guys out on the IL. And they brought in Matt Carpenter, who was gangbusters. And it wasn't, but I guess part of their falling in this last couple of weeks is Carpenter got injured, and he's been out for a bit. And that guy was just doing bang up for their team.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great pickup. Carpenter was playing in AAA for the Rangers, and the Yankees picked him up. And he was like 10 years ago, St. Louis version Matt Carpenter. You couldn't get him out. Obviously, he was another one that had an IL stint. Donaldson, I mean, obviously he's getting older, so he's not been the same guy. Could be a clutch guy down the stretch, but again, he's a guy that ever since 17, 18 has had injury problems but he was an everyday guy, a guy that you could count on for 150 games a year when he played in Oakland and then after 2015 and 16. So, I mean, these are older guys too, right? You got Rizzo, Torres is a younger guy. Center field is a friggin' mess for them. I cannot believe they traded Jordan Montgomery for Harrison Bader. I mean, Jordan Montgomery, he's like 35-0 against the Toronto Blue Jays. And if you want to keep the Blue Jays down, you just throw Jordan Montgomery. But they traded him to St. Louis, and they're getting Bader back, and they're thinking they're going to be all right. But Severino's injured.
Yeah.
So again, I think it's a big oversight by Brian Cashman. But again, I don't see the Yankees dropping it. But like you alluded to, the deficit is 8 and 7 for the Jays, 8 for the Rays. It's not, it's not crazy to see 8 games disappear in a 40 game, 40 games remaining, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's the opportunity there. Like I said, it may be unlikely, but I don't think as a Yankee fan, you can feel completely secure at this point. Let's see here. If we look at the first game, bringing this up, apologies, on Thursday. Let's see who was up. Oh, yeah. Okay. So you had Barrios against Montas. Okay. And a young man, was it Osvaldo Cabrera came up. He had his first major hit in there. But as far as on Thursday on the Blue Jays, it looked like the real excitement came from George Springer. Man, he's up there, 5 hits, five times you come to the plate and 5 times you get a hit. Wow.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. I mean, first time he played in the Wild, so he gets 5 hits and then he takes one off the knee and then he's out for the rest of the series. He had a big pinch hit yesterday in some managerial mastery by John Schneider. I think it was the top 7. Santiago Espinal is supposed to come up, and then Schneider sends out Kevin Biggio, left-hander. Yeah. Boone goes to the bullpen to get, is it Wandy Peralta or Willie Peralta? One of the Peraltas who throw left-handed. Schneider counters by sending up George Springer, and Springer laces a base hit. But eventually would load the bases. I don't think they didn't catch Merrifield, so they didn't do anything really with it. But yeah, I mean, George has been hit and miss, and the Jays lineup goes as he goes, and sometimes it extends the lineup when he's in the lineup, but when he's out of the lineup, which is more often than not, especially with elbow injuries and now leg injuries, the offense kind of struggles a bit. So we'll have to see how the rest goes. Obviously, they play Boston for 3 tomorrow. Last time they were in Boston, they looked like the Harlem Globetrotters, and the Red Sox looked like the Washington Generals.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm not exaggerating. The Jays put up 28 runs, broke a record, a 31-year-old record. Is it 31 or 28? Yeah, my math is hard, Corby. 28. So yeah, 28 runs, 28-year record. 24, they scored 24. I think it was an 84 against the Orioles.
Jeez.
So yeah, it was not good. It was they were really close to 30 rounds too. But yeah, so we'll have to see if Springer's in the lineup. Right now they're still holding a playoff spot. But when you have the Orioles playing out of their heads and the Twins hanging around, and obviously the Red Sox are still somewhat into it, they're 6 games back. And you're looking at the Mariners right now, who have been good as anyone since the deadline.
No doubt.
It's an uneasy feeling being a Jays fan.
Well, I mean, you got to feel solid about the wild card. I know there's a lot of tightness there and some can climb up, but you guys have been on such a row. I guess I really shouldn't say that because we know how things change. Mm-hmm. But looking, again, going back to this recent series, on Friday, you guys shut out the Yankees at home. I mean, that rarely happen. It's happened a couple of times recently, but I mean, my gosh, Kevin Gausman, I never know how he's going to be. He's had his great days and he's had his not so great days. He's been 9 for 9, I think this season. So, but you guys came out with that. Let's see, Teoscar Hernandez got 2-run home run from him. And that was a big part of that game. Saturday was interesting because you guys brought out Mitch White. Now he's pretty brand spanking new with y'all, isn't he?
Yeah, he came over the Dodgers. He's made 3 starts so far, pitched against 3 really, really good clubs. Minnesota, Cleveland, and now New York. He's a long man. He's a swing man, and swing men are valuable. But he is now in the rotation full time with my favorite pitcher in Blue Jays history, Yusei Kikuchi, now going to the bullpen. So White did what he needed to do against Crybaby Garrett on Saturday. He pitched 4 innings, gave up 1 run, and did what he needed to do as the wheels fell off for the Yankees in the top of the 5th inning. So he's been really solid so far, and I look forward to seeing, how he grows from that. Can he go 5? Can he go 6? Let's see what happens. He's been really good with the Dodgers, and so far so good with the Blue Jays. A hell of a lot better than what Montas has given the Yankees.
Well, yeah, and certainly that day too. Let's see what am I going to hear. Jackie Bradley Jr. I don't know. I look at him and I think, was that really anybody wanted to add to their team? And but he came through on Saturday. He came through and made a difference with the team.
Yeah, I mean, the Jays and Bradley Jr. were talking over the past couple of years, and Jays had Bradley Zimmer on their bench from Cleveland, and Zimmer unfortunately couldn't hit a beach ball, but he can catch the beach ball. Very good defender, a lot of speed. Now he's going to play with the Phillies. They thought Bradley could give them a little more pop, especially being a left-handed hitter, and give them that solid defense. So Bradley's played center field exclusively so far, and he's been good. I mean, obviously he's had some at-bats where you're like, what the hell are you swinging at? But that's par for the course for the Toronto Blue Jays right now. So they're going to see what happens with him. I don't think, if Springer's healthy, obviously Springer gets the reps. You have Whit Merrifield out there too, who can play right, center, second. And Merrifield's an interesting guy, right? So he leads the league in games played. He leads the league in hits. He's had a garbage 2022. Comes over and, essentially he's inserted in center. And, he's been playing right, playing second. He hasn't been playing every day. But, one of the things that you can like about Merrifield is he's a grinder. If he makes contact, he's got a chance with his speed to get a base hit. He can steal bases, and he can play good defense. So, I mean, he is an everyday guy. He just needs more at-bats and needs time to figure it out. But the problem right now is with 40 games to go, you can't wait for guys to figure it out.
No.
John Schneider, just like Kevin Cash, just like Booney, they got to roll with their hot hands right now. And Merrifield has not been that guy. Bradley has not been that guy. He had a good game Saturday. Sunday, he took a walk to tie the game. So he's had 2 pretty decent games, and I'm sure he's going to play in Boston, right? Come home, and they're going to cheer him and boo him. 2018 was it ALCS or World Series MVP, one or the other. But he's a good ball player when he goes. We know what he can do, and hopefully he can do it for the Jays.
Well, good luck with him out there. And I won't go much into Sunday outside of saying, wow, the bouncing ball for the home run for Merrifield. That's got to be
the Kawhi Leonard shot.
Oh, tell me more. Go ahead. Give
So Kawhi Leonard played for the Toronto Raptors in the 2019 NBA playoffs, and his final shot in the game clinching, I think it was game 6 against the Philadelphia 76ers. It was a shot and it bounced. Everybody was like, and then it goes in, and the whole place went nuts. I think the whole country went nuts when that happened. But yeah, that's what we called it. It was fly ball to right center field, and all Aaron Hicks could do was watch it bounce over the fence.
Oh, well, it was a very entertaining series to watch, and I was glad to see the Blue Jays do so well with it. So we'll see how it goes for you guys with Boston this week. I hope it's a competitive series, but I'd love to see you guys win it as always. Until we're face to face, continued success with that. Talking about the parallels between the Blue Jays and the Rays, you and I were talking before the show a little bit about Charlie Montoyo.
Mm-hmm.
He was here as a bench coach. He did a lot of things prior to that, but then took the job with the Blue Jays. I think it was 2018, I believe.
2019.
Thank you. 2019. So when he came on there, I mean, you guys have been growing with him. I thought you guys were looking good earlier this year, and and suddenly, bam, he's no longer there.
Yeah. So here's how I understand how this all went down. So 2019, Ross Atkins, general manager, had John Gibbons as the manager for 16, 17, and 18. And by the way, John Gibbons now on Twitter, folks. So go ahead and enjoy that. So he brings in Charlie Montoyo in 2019. He wanted a manager that was familiar with how the Tampa Bay Rays did things, because he looked at the Rays as a role model organization. When it came to developing young players, and Toronto they were going to have a ton of young players, right? Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Kevin Biggio, three guys that were due anytime in the 2019 season to start playing, and in which they did. So 2019 was a write-off for the Jays. Obviously, it was a rebuilding year of sorts. Worst year since 2013 wins and losses wise, but I think Jays fans knew that was coming. So forward to 2020. 2020, obviously, COVID comes. You have a shortened season. You got 60 games. The expectation for the Jays was not very high because, of course, they're playing in Buffalo. Can't cross the border. They play in Salem Field, and every minor league team had an alt site where they were playing simulated games, whatever games, development games. So they had 60 games. And then when they figured out that they were contending in 2020, they started making some trades, bringing some people over. If I remember correctly, Ross Stripling was brought over. Corey Dickerson might have been 2021. Simber. They made a few additions. Jonathan VR, a guy that you and I are both familiar with, came over in 2020, played second base. So they make the playoffs. They get handed to them by the Rays in 2020. And then 2021 comes and they sign George Springer. They signed Ryu in 2020, of course. Forgot about that. 2021, they signed Springer. They bring in Simeon, and expectations are high, right? Yeah, playoff year in 2020, so the rebuild was kind of expedited. But again, start the season in Dunedin, and then you're going to go to Buffalo, and then if all goes well, maybe end of July, August, September, you go to Toronto. So the Jays knew that ahead of time, and that's a hard thing to manage because you're managing players, which are human beings at the end of the day. You're managing their families, right? And you're managing other loved ones. You're managing egos. There's a lot to handle, right? So Charlie Montoyo, what he did was really, really amazing. 2020, he took a team that made Buffalo home, a minor league ballpark. He took them to the playoffs, right? 2021, over 3 home stadiums and a few changes, he was within 1 game of the playoffs, 91 wins. 2022 comes along. April's okay. May's all right. June, the wheels start to fall off. There's a road trip in Oakland and Seattle, and the Jays just get handed to them. And I think it was the home series before. It was a day game on a Sunday, and I forget who they were playing. But there were 2 fly balls. One to Teoscar Hernandez, who dropped it because he didn't have his sunglasses on. One to Vladimir Guerrero, who also dropped the fly ball because he didn't have his sunglasses on. Now let's go back to the Seattle series for a second. Sunday game, I think it was at the bottom of the 8th, and the Jays had a lead. 2 outs, runner on third. I don't remember who was on the mound. It could have been Romano, but it was a strike 3. Gabriel Moreno, top prospect, Blue Jays organization, he's catching. Drops the ball, drop third strike, throws it down to first, and the ball goes through Vladimir Guerrero's glove. Right?
Yeah, I remember that.
Talk about a team that looked dumb, looked like they were not prepared.
Yeah.
Right? So they go home. And unfortunately, Mark Budzinski, the first base coach's daughter, Julia, passed away. So they go to the funeral Monday, and obviously if the Jays are going to make a change, they're not going to do that. Tuesday, Philadelphia comes to town. They win with Charlie. So we're thinking, okay, they're 45-43. It's not the end of the world. They've been a lot worse. 2015, they were 50-51 before they brought in Tulowitzki, Price, Lowe, Revere, and all those guys. They fired Charlie Montoyo. So they bring in John Schneider. John Schneider was a longtime coach in the Blue Jays minor league system. He managed Bo, he managed Vladdy, he managed Biggio, and he won at all the levels in the Jays organization: single A, double A, triple. He did not manage in triple A. Gulf Coast League, single A and double A. He won championships.
Gotcha.
2019, he joins the team as a quality control coach. So he's really former catcher. He's helping catchers. He had Danny Jansen there. So he's helping get him ready for games and for the show, even though Schneider didn't play in the big leagues, but that's a story for another day. So 2020, he's with the team. 21, he becomes the bench coach because they want to make Dave Hudgens. He was the bench coach, the hitting strategist. What is a hitting strategist? Anyways. So then obviously Schneider being the bench coach, knowing the players as well as he does, becomes the new manager. Now, they got off to a good start under Schneider. They struggled under Schneider. They just took 3 out of 4 at a Yankee Stadium under Schneider. So, and they're in a playoff spot still right now. So could this be the move the team needed to get them over the finish line into the playoffs? Too early to tell. It's too early to tell because there's no easy ride anymore in Major League Baseball.
No.
Right? The competitive balance of this league, and I don't care what anybody says, the people like Scott Boras who say, Anaheim, they just want a draft pick. Texas, they just want a draft pick. How does Texas want a draft pick when they sign 2-year friggin' clients to $1 trillion deals?
Yeah, come on.
Right? Pittsburgh, they just want a draft pick. Chicago, the Cubs, they just want a draft pick. They don't want, they signed Stroman and Yan Gomes. I don't know. Pittsburgh, they could scare you too. So there's no easy ride. And like I said, it's uneasy. Was Charlie Montoyo the problem in Toronto for this year? I don't think he was. I think it was more the guy assembling the team together. But Charlie is a really, really nice guy. Right?
Yeah.
And I think it's hard for him. I do think it's hard for him to get confrontational. I do think it's hard for him. Was my one criticism of him was he didn't fight for his guys. So, for example, when a player would get on an umpire but a terrible strike call, he would just let the player hang out there, right?
Charlie wasn't walking out.
Charlie wasn't getting in the middle.
Charlie's a nice guy. He's nice to his players. He's a friend of them. He's a friend of the umpires. He's not a guy who's going to inspire and invigorate and put fire out there and support his guys. That was a lot of the criticism I was hearing about him time and time again.
Exactly. Pete Walker, the pitching coach, was tossed more times than Charlie Montoyo in 2021.
Well, that guy looks like he's ready all the time. That's the gentleman with the sleeves cut off, and he just, man, I want him. If you ever want a cartoon character, somebody who's going to be barking at somebody, he's perfect for that.
He's an intense guy. Charlie did get ejected a lot more in 2022. I think his feet might have been held to the fire about getting in the way of between umpires and players. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, he's not here anymore. John Schneider's here, and see how it goes.
Y'all doing well for now. Wish you well. Wish Charlie well for that matter. But looking across and saying who's going to tolerate who, I'm a little surprised Aaron Boone's still there because the Yankees cry for blood, but Brian Cashman's had his hand on the wheel for a long time. I don't think anything's going to change unless he wants it to. Some of the other ones, I guess, you were trying to trade Ross Atkins, weren't you?
I'm always trying to trade Ross Atkins, but people get mad at me when I do.
Oh no, but it's an exciting year to watch the Blue Jays. And I mean, you think, like I said, what Toronto's gone through during the year, the first year, COVID being completely in Buffalo. And I didn't know which was worse, that year or the year when you're at 3 or 4 different locations that followed it. And I thought, there's no place it's like in the Wizard of Oz, there's no place like home, but there's no place that we can call home is what,
Yeah.
geez, and crackers. One other quick note on COVID I was thinking about too is kind of random, but while you guys were playing in New York, I think one fellow, was it Patrick O'Neill? They retired his number 21. And with him, he's not vaccinated, so he couldn't shake the hands of the players when they retired his number. Oh gosh. Oh, well, I won't go down that route anymore. It just, the insanity of some of the stuff amazes me. And it always amazed me that all the backlash to everything being said about, well, these Blue Jays, they're saying we got to go up there and play. We got to be vaccinated. Well, guess what? If the Blue Jays were going to come play any of you guys and come to the US, they had to be vaccinated. It wasn't a one-way street. It wasn't a Blue Jays policy, boys and girls.
And that's the thing though, right? Like the Jays played in 3 different United States minor league, or 2 different United States minor league ballparks, and played in their own home ballpark. And they did not bitch and moan like everybody else has. It's just been stupid and ridiculous.
Oh, but you guys are looking great. Well, now that we've talked enough about what I wanted to, another thing I want to see too is the depth of what you're doing with Canadian baseball on the Cardy Show. And tell us a little bit about some of the topics and the people you've had on recently.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So most recently, we had a Toronto-based historian by the name of Adam Bunch. So Adam is a former history professor. He's authored a couple books based out of Toronto, but he's a super duper expert on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, you're like, what? The Maple Leafs are a hockey team. They are a hockey team. You are correct. But before the hockey team came into existence, there is a baseball team that played in the International League that went by the name of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And you would now know them as the Worcester Red Sox. A very long history. Many former major leaguers went through Toronto. Babe Ruth hit his first home run at Hanlan's Point Stadium in Toronto.
Wow.
Let's see who else has been through there. Sparky Anderson, his first ever managerial job was managing the Toronto Maple Leafs. And Jack Kent Cooke was the man who revitalized the franchise. Obviously, folks in the States know that he was the Washington football team owner and the Lakers and the LA Kings for the longest time. But he honestly, I can make a case, Mark, that if it wasn't for Jack Kent Cooke doing what he did with the International League's Toronto Maple Leafs, there wouldn't be the Toronto Blue Jays, because that club could have folded. He tried to get Major League Baseball to Toronto in the 50s. The Philadelphia Athletics were for sale. The Detroit Tigers were for sale. At one point, the St. Louis Browns were for sale. But stadium was an issue. And unfortunately, that it didn't come to fruition. And when Jack left in 1964, 1967, the Maple Leafs were sold. 800 people showed up at Maple Leaf Stadium, which was about 27 or was 35,000 seats. So it's kind of like regular season games at the Trop. 800 people showed up, and unfortunately the Maple Leafs were sold to a businessman out of Evansville, Indiana, who moved the team to Louisville.
Oh yeah.
So, that's the most recent episode. It's an hour and 20 minutes of just glorious baseball talk and history talk. Adam does a phenomenal job. Podcasts where I talk, like I don't talk a lot, those are my favorite. I had so we've done a lot of Toronto Blue Jays teams, 2007, 1997, 1987. Before that, we had Jeff Cheek, son of great Floridian Tom Cheek, Hall of Fame Ford C. Frick winning broadcaster, was on to talk about his dad's career. What else have we done? A lot of Jays. We're gonna get into. We did some Buffalo baseball as well with a gentleman by the name of Brian Frank. So there's that. We've talked about Roy Halladay. We've talked about John Gibbons. We even went and talked about Roberto Alomar. So, my co-host Dave Lasser and I, we've done a lot of it ourselves. About anytime we get guests on to talk about the historical impact is awesome. And I guess I'll tell you this, Corby. Sooner than later, either at the end of the month or jumping into September, we're going to do an 8th anniversary spectacular of the Cardy Show. So we've been doing it for 8 years now.
Wow.
So I don't know what that's going to look like. It could just be me spouting off stories of interviews I've done. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to get guests. It's not working out so well, but we'll figure it out.
Maybe you can do a whole week of the greatest hits,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Oh gosh. Again, we're talking with Brent Cardy, the Cardy Show, and talking about the Blue Jays and talking about a lot of different things with Canadian baseball history and the Maple Leafs. Yeah. I don't think many people are going to say Maple Leafs and think baseball. So it's definitely check out the show. And Brent, where can they find you at Twitter and all that?
Find me on Twitter at Cardy, Cardy. Show it up on Twitter. There's no Facebook. There's no instant chat or whatever they call it. Snapbook, Snapgram. You know how it is. Just find me on Twitter. No TikTok for me. This face is a face for radio.
Oh, I know the feeling. Well, Brent, I want to thank you again, man, for joining us here today on Baseball Biz. It's always a pleasure having you here, and wish you continued success, and looking forward to hearing that 8-year anniversary episode when that comes up too.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you for everything.
All right. Take care, my friend.
You've been listening to Baseball Biz. As always, you can find us on your favorite podcast directory, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and more. Thanks again, and remember, you can also check us out on Twitter at @TheBaseballBiz. Take care and have a great week. Special thanks to X-Take RUX for the music Rocking Forward.